Hello and welcome to the Homeowners Show. It's another Sunday. We are glad to come your way once again with the very best regarding trying to find a way to put a roof over your head. It's one of the most important things in a man's life, isn't it? And also to find ways and means you can finance a project of that nature. We are glad to come your way, trying to answer all the questions that you have for us regarding this space. And we would be talking about yet another very important topic today, yet again in the studios of Metro TV. Thanks for joining us once again. My name is Michael Katahena, and for the next 1 hour, we'll be doing justice to the topic we have on the table. We'll be stepping out for a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break, and you're watching the Homeowners Show, proudly brought to you by the First National Bank Ghana and supported by CBC Properties, if you just joined us. Now, just before we introduce the topic for the day and our guest for today, First National Bank Ghana says I should ask you whether you are a homeowner who requires financial assistance to meet other pressing needs. Well, First National Bank can help you unlock the value in your house by releasing equity in your property to finance your business, fund your child's education abroad, or any other need. Speak to First National Bank's experienced team of home loan consultants today to discover more help. You can call us on 0242 435 or 0800 770 522 to get started. First National Bank, how can we help you? Now, why do you have to buy a piece of land now? Well, as Anthony Trollope put it, and I quote, because land provides the highest returns, the greatest values, the least risks. And of course, it is the only thing that cannot fly away. Now is the best time to own a land in Oyarifa, Pram, East Legon Hills, Adenta, Amanfrosha Hills, Iment, and so on. You can call CBC Properties to schedule for a free site visit on 0262 898686. Get them on their website at www.cbcghanalimited.com. You can also follow CBC Properties on social media at CBC Ghana Limited on Facebook and Twitter, and at CBC Ghana on IG, at CBC Properties on YouTube. Magil Enterprise is the pioneer in innovative building and construction materials with over 20 years of experience in Ghana. We supply notable brands like Era, George Fisher Hakan Plastics, Pearson, Ferrat Plastic, EMS Force, Interplast, Bosch, Power Tools, Leo Pumps, and many more. Magil is also the sole distributor of cast products in Ghana. Call Magil Enterprise for all your hardware supplies on 0207 672 965 or 0540-573-421, and on social media find them at Magil Enterprise. Locate Magil at Spintex Ecobank at Dogono Road opposite the Shell station, and you would have all your answers that you require. Magil Enterprise, if it's not quality, it's not Magil. All right, so time now to delve into the topic for today, and we are looking at ensuring value for money in home construction. Now, the financiers, when it comes to construction or putting your building together, are not just interested in making money off you. They want to make sure that you have value for money, give you the expert advice, and make sure that you get what you so much desire, because they do know that you are investing a lot of your resources. And to help us do that, this afternoon we have with us from First National Bank Ghana, Mr. Edward Nyakun, and he's the head of business development and strategic initiatives, home loans. So he joins us here this afternoon to discuss what we have on the table. Mr. Nyakun, we are very glad to have you here this afternoon to speak to us on this topic.
Thank you, Michael, and I'm happy to be here too.
Thank you so much. Well, one thing that probably people get wrong is that probably people like you in your space are just interested in making money off people, but that is far from the truth. You want to ensure that they get value for money, and that is why when you want to probably finance a property of the sort, you take the pains to go through all the processes with them. And I was so astounded when I found out for the first time the sort of details that you go through before you get somebody, or you get the financing for somebody's property. And it's quite amazing. We want to look at the sort of advice, for starters, that for somebody who has been in this business for so long, sort of advice you'd give, let's say, a first-time potential prospective property owner when he wants to put something together. I mean, you want to ensure that there is a sort of a balance, an optimal balance between cost, time, and probably the quality of the sort of structure that you have. Basically, what sort of advice would you want to give a person like that before we get into the details?
Okay, thank you, Michael. And I think I'll look at it on different lines. First is the land.
Okay.
Land is very key when you are building your own home. And most often what happens is people get to know that, oh, their friends are buying a piece of land somewhere, and the price is good, and we all jump and buy.
Yeah.
And we've had instances where people have bought land and they never went to see the land they bought. So it's important that you get the right land.
Okay.
Now, what do I mean by the right land? The right land means that you have land, typically will be a good location.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to property, we usually say location, location, location. The good location sometimes may not necessarily be airport or cantonment,
Okay.
but a good location means that you have good access to the land.
Okay.
In terms of access road, in terms of access to utilities. And also, more importantly, because you are going to live there, you want places that are close to good amenities,
Yes.
like hospitals, supermarkets, and these other items.
Okay.
So it's important that in choosing the land, make sure that you have a land that has good access. Sometimes people buy land, and or we funded developments. You go and you realize that where the land is, you ask them, where do you intend to get power from? And they've never thought about it. They just went and acquired the land. But it's important that in choosing the land, ask yourself, where do I get power?
Yeah.
I know now it's easy to get solar, but it's important that you
Yes.
know how you get power to your site. You also know how to get water to your site.
Okay.
And like I said, access road. Sometimes the road, where people build, the road to take them is a whole issue.
Non-existent.
So it's important that you get the land right.
Yes.
Now, when you have identified this thing and you are happy with the location,
Okay.
it's also good that you get a professional
Okay.
to advise you on the land.
Okay.
Because these days, you know, we've had issues about water courses and also whether the type of soil within the area will help you
Okay.
maximize value. Because if the place is, let's say, a water course, or in Accra, we have a greater part of Accra that happens to be clay. And it also means that you are going to spend a lot more in your foundation. But that is not to say that you can build in such areas. You can, but you need the right decisions or the right design to make sure that if you build, you realize that you are getting value. And I'm sure when you drive around, especially in built-up areas, you see there's a common thing in Accra, most areas, what we call rising damp.
Yes.
You see at the bottom the paint peeling off. And it's all based on the fact that, you see, we do not look at the type of soil to design the type of foundation you need to be able to make sure that you are benefiting from the money. Because, you see, eventually you spend money.
Yes.
And construction costs a lot. So
yeah.
just make sure that whatever you are putting in, you are getting value. Because if you spend and you have issues with your foundation, then it means that you will have to re-spend on your foundation. And once you get a professional to advise you, because what I see is that most houses uses the same type of foundations, but there are so many types of foundations. So the type of soil in that area, you get the right professional and he will advise you on that. So one is the land,
Yes.
and the other one is the construction cost.
Okay.
We all know how prices of materials keep going up.
Yes.
And it really costs a lot to build nowadays.
Okay.
So you need a good design. It's also easy to see that, oh, my friend has a nice house and I think that I need the same, or it needs to look the same.
Yes.
But you see, our lifestyles are different. So your design, usually when you get an architect, will ask for a brief. And this brief, the whole idea of the brief is to get an understanding of your lifestyle so that the design suits how you live. Otherwise, you have a design that suits your friend, but it doesn't suit you. It's also very common when we have to advise clients. You see, when people come and they're coming to assess loans, and you are advising them, especially those who haven't started.
Yes.
You can advise them in ways that they need to build so that it doesn't cost them much. Because sometimes some of the design they bring costs them much more than we usually, and we've had instances that we've had clients go back. So get a very good design. It's very common, and I'm sure when I go to inspect some of these units, some houses, excuse me to say, are built like hotels. You know, typically in a hotel, you have a corridor and you have rooms on your left, rooms on your right, and as you walk through, and that whole corridor is not space that is usually, and most of it, the way it's done, you have lights on most of the time. And that tells you it's not an efficient design. So get a good design. And once you get
enough light into it.
Enough light, daylight into it. And once you have that, so you've addressed land, you have addressed the cost. And the key thing is the workmanship. Okay. And make sure that you get the right people to build for you. Material is about, if for every 100,000 you spend, you can be sure that about 70 to 75,000 of that is material. So if you don't get the right artisans and they mess your materials up, it costs you more. So what it means is that something that should have cost you 100 will cost you 120 because they've wasted your material. So it's good to get the right kind of artisans to work. So land, design, and the construction are key things that you need to do when you are building your own home.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, if you're watching us, you can start tabulating your questions. You can start sending your questions now, and we'll get them. And as much as possible, we'll get Mr. Nyarko to answer as many of them as possible for you before we leave here. I mean, it's very important that you mention these points, and I'm very interested in getting the right professional aspect, the design aspect. I mean, we want fine things, we want big things, usually a lot of times not even functional, like you're saying, too big for us. And within a few years, the place is not really useful for you because all your children are out and you have a 5-bedroom house to maintain, more like a mansion that you don't really need. But then we want these fine things, but we also want to circumvent the cost. We want to cut out. So like getting a good designer to give you a good design, a functional one, a sensible one. We don't do that because you find out people getting all kinds of people to do drawings for them. I mean, there's a difference between a draftsman, for example, and an architect. There's a reason why they spent that number of years in school and vice versa. But I don't understand really, probably maybe you have encountered a lot of these things in your line of business. Why do people always want to cut out these professionals that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's because they think that professionals are expensive. And it's sad to think that you see professionals as expensive. But you see, the moment you get things wrong, and you have to correct the mistakes, then you realize that it's costing you more than what you would have paid. I would say that as professionals, they want to charge what is due, but it also doesn't take away the fact that if you did engage them, they would really understand to be able to help you. Because most of them actually also want to help you build. It's not just about the money.
Yes.
And there have been instances when I've introduced professionals, because when people come and we realize that the designs require, we need to be able to help them. They seek advice, and there are some professionals who would advise them to assist them. And it doesn't cost that much, but there's that notion that professionals are expensive.
Yeah.
But I think if you get it wrong, then you spend more. So you are better off using the professional. That's why people don't want to use the professional. The other thing is, it's also easier for people, and I'll give you a typical example. I had a friend who wanted to do his fence wall,
Okay.
and asked me to do an estimate for him. The moment I did the estimate, he started laughing at me. He said, oh, he thinks I'm too book long. I'm doing things straight from the book. His mason says he can spend half of the amount I'm asking him to use.
Yeah.
I said, oh, so does he believe that the mason, so, but the mason has been building all along. He's built his father's house, his uncle's house. So I said, okay, no problem. Let's go ahead with the mason's quote.
Okay.
Now, along the line, he spends twice what the mason gave him.
Initially, yeah.
Then the next issue was, no, I think my mason is stealing my cement, because after giving him twice what he's asking for more. But you see, the fact is that these are all science.
Yes.
And there is a basis for calculating this thing. So it's important that, for me, you know how much it's going to go. It helps you for planning.
Yes.
Because if you get a lower quotation, and then on the basis of that, you start the work, and realize that it's costing you, it messes you up. So it's important that you know what the real cost is,
From the
and
beginning.
then you can plan and do it. And I think that it's important that you are well informed. The other thing is that you have people also, just like you mentioned earlier, 4 or 5 bedroom houses. Because, oh, I have 3 children, each child should have a home. So on the basis of that, I should need another room so that when I get visitors, they will sleep in. My question is, why do you add an extra room which will cost you almost about 60,000? An extra room will cost you about 60,000 when nobody will stay there, or you get a visitor once or twice in a whole year.
Wow.
You might have well invested that money.
You're right.
In either treasury bill and not. So it's important that you look along that side. And I always advise people that you get a design that is expandable.
Okay.
So it costs more to build. So once you have a design, and just tell the architect, look, I want to be able to expand these units going forward. Okay. So he gives you a design, and as and when you think that your family size is growing, you add on the units, but don't go and add on the rooms when there are nobody to live in.
Right.
It rather doesn't help you.
This is brilliant. This is brilliant advice, you know. Well, you've given us a lot of tips on how to ensure value for money and to avoid waste, so to speak, for the prospective property owner who wants to build. Now, what would you have to say for someone who wants to buy outright? What are some of the key things to look out for? What are some of the things to consider when you want to buy in this case?
So, just I did mention, buying, it's also about property, and it's also about location. So make sure that you are buying a property in a location where you have access to these amenities. So does the developer has water on site? Do they have power? What is their access road? I also do advise that, you see, when you go buying, you typically would see the completed house, but pay more attention to the ones under construction.
Okay, why? That's interesting.
If you did pay attention to the ones under construction, it tells you whether the developer is building right or not.
Okay.
Because typically, because you are excited, you go and you see the completed ones. But it's also important that you look at the ones under construction. It gives you a sense of whether the right things are being done. And I will always advise that if you do not know engage a professional to take to the site, let him give you his view.
Yes.
I said they may not be what you want to hear, but it's also good for you to know, so that even if you are negotiating price, you know that, look, there are certain things you need to come back to work on, so that when you're negotiating price, you can negotiate a price that helps you to be able to work on this if you are happy with the location.
Fantastic. I mean, these are priceless gems that we are really sharing with our viewers out there. I'm making notes as you're talking, because these are things that would never really cross your mind. Like you're saying, we just want to see the completed thing. It looks nice, and then you just want to buy it. But then, have you considered probably the track record even of the developer? And these are things to really consider. Now, I have a friend who is into construction. He's been into construction for quite a number of years. And I remember he was sharing a story with me once. He was building for this quite rich businessman who clearly didn't have a lot of regard for this so-called book-long things, you know. So he said he when he started discussing the thing right from the beginning, he suggested what he calls a bill of quantities. He was trying to explain to the man how important that is. And the man just asked him, I wasn't there. You know, he outright, I mean, just threw rubbished it, you know. I just want to ask, how important is the generation of a bill of quantities for the client or the prospective homeowner before he embarks on buying the property or building? And probably maybe you might want to educate us a little bit about the bill of quantities.
Sometimes when I hear bills of quantities, and I realize that it's something of old, because it's strict in the Bible.
Okay.
That who builds a tower without knowing how much it's going to cost him?
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So it's something that you need to know. Okay. Don't build when you don't know how much it's going to cost you. And the bills of quantity is the name that, well, we call it, but it's basically for you to know that I'm building a 3-bedroom house. This is how much it's going to cost me. Do I have the money to build it? If I don't have, how am I going to find money to build it? And you know, typically we call buildings projects.
Yes.
And projects are defined as things, are activities that have a defined time and a defined cost. But you see, most of us are doing projects, and it's like we are doing it small. It takes 5 years. So it means that you don't even have a defined time.
Exactly.
And what that means is that you would finish these houses, and it will cost you way out. So you should plan. Okay, so it's a 3-bedroom house. Do you really want to build this? And that is what happens when you drive around. People start houses, and it takes them 5 to 7 years to build.
Sometimes even more.
So you are spending money building, meanwhile at the same time you are renting a property.
Yeah, it's true.
So why don't you plan such that you are able to move into this house within a year? And like I did mention, you don't need to build a 3-bedroom house if you can't afford it. Build a 2-bedroom. Just make sure that you have a design that expands to a 3 or a 4-bedroom. So that at any particular point in time when you have enough money, you can add additional bedrooms. And we do that a lot when we have clients who walk in, and typically they would have gone to do their 5-bedroom and they want money to complete them. But you realize that their incomes do not qualify them enough money to complete a 5-bedroom. So what we do is that we advise you, there's a way we can make this building habitable.
Okay.
And that is what is very key. Because once you move in, then you don't need to be staying somewhere and pay rent.
So the money that would have gone into rent will now be...
So we advise you, and we will fund up to the habitable state.
Okay.
So you can move in, so that whatever you would have used to pay rent, you would have rather used to service your loan. And as most clients, and it's interesting, I think about a week ago I met a client, and he was like, oh, you know, the advice you gave me was very good. Otherwise, I'll still be staying. And sometimes people want to You don't need to finish the building completely before you move.
That is the thing. No, you're right. Because the person wants it to be plush and everything bright, sparkling, shining before they move in.
Because you see, the good thing about building is as you live there,
Yes.
you get inspired.
Okay.
And you are motivated to complete it. If you don't live there, it doesn't encourage you to complete. You take your own time. And especially for people who take money from us to complete, you should finish it as quickly as possible and move in. Because the longer you take, the longer prices go up. And the longer, like I said, it's a project.
Yes.
So there's a defined resource available and you have a defined time. So make sure you finish it within that time and move in and enjoy the benefits. There are instances where you have people who have built houses. By the time they move in, they move into the new house and they start changing light fittings.
That's true. I mean, what you say is so true. Yes. And we end up wasting a lot of money. You made an earlier point about, when you were talking about building in stages. So you get a designer to build something that you can move in at a habitable stage, and then it's an expandable design, so you can always do that at your convenience. You mentioned something about even having an extra room, which makes so much of a difference. I mean, you mentioned something about in the area of about 60,000 or probably even more if you want to add an extra room. I mean, honestly, it blew me away. What on the average currently? I mean, now it's a bit difficult because, we have prices just fluctuating like crazy. But on the average, how much would it cost, or how much does it cost to have, say, a 2-bedroom house, a 2 or 3-bedroom house?
So if you want a very decent 2-bedroom house, and I say decent, and because you see, typically in Ghana, people like big rooms. And the bigger your building, the more it costs you.
Okay.
So for a decent 2-bedroom house, which I would maybe say is about 90 square meter size,
okay,
for instance, should be able to cost you between about 300 to 350,000 cedis. Now I mentioned 300 to 350,000 because you see, our tastes and preferences are different.
Okay. All right.
Now when you go on the market, you can get tiles from as low as 50 cedis per square meter,
okay,
to as high as 300 cedis per square meter. So depending on what you select, will push. And there are other things you can do to move into this 2-bedroom house.
okay.
You don't need to do all the tiling in the room, for instance, to move in. It's interesting. When I started work, most houses were completed with screed. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
Most houses were completed with screed. But these days, there's no way you go in a house that you see every house has to be completed. And it's because our tastes and preferences are changing.
Yes.
And that is also influencing the cost of construction.
Yes.
Most of the houses that I was involved at the initial stage of construction, most houses were using louver, blaze and louver. Now nobody uses louver. We are using sliding windows,
yes,
which means that we are moving towards more imported items. And I guess the more we begin to look at things that we can easily find on our local market, the cheaper it is will be when you are building. Recently, we had to look at a development that was done up north, which was, they use compressed earth, where instead of, so it's laterite mixed with cement, and they built decent 2-bedroom houses, and which was costing almost in the region about 150,000 cedis.
Wow.
But the question is, and what I liked about those developments is that, the north is really hot.
Hot, yes.
If you enter the room, it feels as if you're in an air-conditioned room.
Really? Because of the mixture of the laterite?
Because of the properties of the laterites.
Okay.
So it does not transfer heat into the buildings. But so these are all ways that if you really want to look at reducing your cost of building, you can explore. There are providers on the market you can always engage to be able to assess. You don't need to do what everybody is doing. Just be sure that you have either your 2 or 3 bedroom and good design, and then based, like I said, know how much it's going to cost you. Based on how much it's going to cost you, if you tell your QS or your quantity surveyor that, look, this is how much I think I can spend, they can advise you on how you can build to that. So you move in rather than starting something that takes you 5-7 years to build.
Fantastic. I mean, you've shared with us brilliant points on how to probably cut out waste and probably move into your property even earlier. It saves you a lot of headache anyway. But I'm sure probably maybe there are 1 or 2 other points or ideas you might want to share with us for those who, let's say, are having issues, in sustaining a project, especially in these times where prices are fluctuating. It's very difficult now. So you probably might need some different ways or strategies to really put up your project in these times. But before we do, I just want to give you a moment to take your breath. We want to step out for a quick break. When we come back, we look at how best we can help prospective owners put up buildings or sustain projects in these times where we find prices skyrocketing, fluctuating like crazy. We're stepping out for a quick break. We'll be right back. Oh, welcome back from the break. You're watching the Homeowners Show, proudly brought to you by the First National Bank Ghana. First National Bank, how can we help you? And supported by CBC Properties Limited, the home of your affordable and litigation-free lands and properties. Magil Enterprise, if it's not quality, it's not Magil. Sub-Saharan fashion, great shirts reserved for men with integrity. Business and Financial Times, Ghana's most authoritative business news source. Construction TV Online, all the news from the building and construction industry. Now, if you want to wear a shirt like I am wearing, Sub-Saharan Fashion says that great shirts are worn by great men with integrity. That's the philosophy behind Sub-Saharan Fashion brand. At Sub-Saharan Fashion, our choice of fabric is inspired by our culture and heritage. The temperament of our clients contribute to the choice of fabric and colors to use, and at the end we create an art piece which is custom made for one person only. So you can call or WhatsApp Sami on 0264017512 for your orders. You can find them on social media at Sub-Saharan Fashion, and you can get what you really want. Well, we have a few questions that have come in, and we've been speaking to Mr. Edward Nyako, Head of Business Development and Strategic Initiatives, Home loans of the First National Bank Ghana, as we are talking about ensuring value for money in construction. A few questions have come in, Mr. Nyako, and we'll be looking at them. But just before you do that, I want you to briefly try to answer the question I put before we went for the break, as to, because of the nature of our economy at the moment and the fluctuating prices and all that, what other bits and pieces of advice can you give for people who want to find realistic ways and means of sustaining their projects?
Okay, so let's look at somebody who has already started.
Okay.
And obviously, looking at how things are going, they are struggling to complete. My first advice would be to get a professional to go to your site and advise, because every project is different.
Yes.
People's ability or the resources they have available are different. I think just last week I had a call from a colleague who said, look, he's gotten to a point where he doesn't know whether to continue his project or not. Interestingly, he's building a 5-bedroom house, which has one side, you know, 2 floors, and the other end has a lower
Okay.
1 floor.
Yes.
So currently, what they are doing is to casting the floor on the 2-floor side.
Yes.
And so my advice was, we need to look at your building and face it in such a way that you can complete and move in. Because for me, that is always key.
Okay.
You need to use it. And so how do we look at your project in such a way that with the minimum amount of money that we can spend,
Yes.
you'll be able to make your building habitable? And for most people who find themselves in this situation, like I said, engage a professional and tell them, I need to move into this house. Looking at how prices are going, it may take longer than I originally anticipated. So what can I do, or in what way can I complete? And I'm sure most of them will offer the advice you need to be able to complete it. But I think once you give this objective, it's very easy for any professional to be able to. People's development vary, so somebody's solution might be a bit different. And I also think that, you know, investing in your property is not a wrong choice at all, unless you have a problem with the land.
Okay.
Sometimes people are building on lands that they know very well that they have issues with the land. But I guess that it will be another subject for another day. But once you are sure you have good title to the land, you should always look at completing the house, even if it is a partial completion, which I always advise.
Yet again, due to the nature of the uncertain times we find ourselves in, for those who are stuck, and for a very good reason too, who are stuck in their project for lack of funds, what can First National Bank Ghana do to help them, I mean, in such critical times?
Yes, so for those who are stuck, and I guess for me that is the point where you even need First National Bank most. We can help you fund your project to the point where it is habitable.
Okay.
What we've done, and for most clients, especially when prices were going up, was to engage them. We did an assessment of the materials they needed to be able to complete the houses. So we were able to procure them so that they were able to hedge against prices. And then what we did was we gave them money. Usually what we do, we give you money in tranches. But to be able to make sure that you are not hit so much with the price increases, we made an arrangement with your supplier and pay for the materials. So you had the materials to be able to complete the house as quickly as possible. Now, for people who are not sure, and like I said, are not sure yet, we always have advisors. Engage us. Let's look at what is the best solution for your particular development. But like I keep saying, the objective is for you to move in. And moving in meaning that we are going to advise you to get a habitable property. And with that habitable property, once you move in, you are encouraged to complete them. You know, when you wake up and you realize that, oh, this other room is not fixed. Anytime you have money, you will be willing to, you know, sacrifice and get it completed rather than going to use the money for other things.
You're right. You're right. Okay, and for those of you who've been standing by to call in, I think that's any moment from now you can do that. So you get your pens and your papers ready. But a few questions have come in here. Let me see. This man says, "My name is Nene Ozo II from Adan. Please, how long can you lease a land to an individual for a residential development?" I don't know if this question is something you'd want to respond to.
Maybe generally, okay, so it just, is it to lease a land for someone? You know, the way leases work is if you own the land and you are either selling or leasing it to me, you only lease it on the basis of how many years you have. Because maybe you may have got from a chief or something and you got 90 years. You spend another 20 years, so you have 70 years. So you have that 70 years that you can lease to me. If it is how long it takes to build, for me, I think that for a residential house, it shouldn't take you more than 18 months. And 18 months means it's a big house.
Okay.
But for simple 2-3 bedroom houses, within maximum 6 to 9 months, you should be able to finish it and move.
Brilliant. Okay. Yes, reminding you once again that the phone lines are open and you can call in. Well, second question says that, hello, I have a land, but I don't have money to build. Can you do something about it? This is coming from Nana Kojo. I don't know where you're sending this from, Nana Kojo, but that's what Nana Kojo says. He has the land, but he hasn't got money to help.
Yes, so we have a product we call home construction. So if you have the land and the land is in your name, what he needs to do next, we can advise based on how much loan we can give him. On the basis of that, Nana Kojo can then decide that, look, based on how much loan, I may be better off starting with either a 1 bedroom that is expandable and which has 1 bedroom living, kitchen, which is expandable, move in, and then make sure that you can expand whilst he goes on. I am not a fan of big houses.
Okay.
And the reason I'm not a fan of big houses is because of the nature of my work. I have so many clients who build 4-5 bedroom houses. All their children have moved out of home. Yeah. The houses are empty, and they are either asking me to rent or sell for them.
Yeah.
So that is why I always advise, if you know you want more than a 3 bedroom, then make sure that maybe that is an outhouse, which when you think you don't need that, you do the outhouse, you can even move in and rent out the 3 bedroom.
Okay.
And make money for yourself, or add another twin house, which you can rent. Because what keeps happening, children grow out of the homes, they move out, and the houses become vacant. And interesting, that is when you spend a lot of money maintaining these buildings, and that is when you're also not having money.
Okay. All right. I think we have our first call on the line today before we look at the other text messages have come in. I think that this is Ezekiel from Kone, if I'm not mistaken.
Anything like that?
Yes. Thanks for joining us on the Homeowners Show. What question do you have for our guest today?
Yes, sir. I am asking that if, for example, I don't have a land that they can build on for me, but then they could get me an apartment, 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom house apartment, and then be deducting from my salary for a couple of months or years for me to permanently own that particular apartment. Is there anything like that?
All right, thank you. I'll just turn it over to Mr. Nyako. Yes, Mr. Nyako.
Yes, Ezekiel. So what we do is, as a mortgage company, we have a number of developers. So based on your preferred location, we can recommend the developers we have for you to see what they have. Now, once you go and see what they have and you are happy with, we would fund, and usually what we do, we expect you to pay a minimum of 20% deposit on that house, and we will fund 80% depending on how much you do qualify, so that he can own it. He doesn't need to go and buy land. Not everybody has the patience to go through the process of acquiring land and building and going through the stress of managing artisans.
That's another thing altogether. They give you so much stress. Well, while we wait for the next call, this is okay. I think we have somebody else on the line. I didn't get the name right. I think Azuma on the line. Yes, Azuma, good afternoon and thanks for joining us on the Homeowners Show.
Yeah, thank you too.
Yes. Can you go
Please,
ahead with your question?
okay, please. I want to ask that I have a three-bed house completed. They have built it completed, but it's left the roofing, and then so that one, how if I want to get help from them, how will I get help from them?
Okay. So Azuma says that the structure, basic structure is up, it's left with the roofing. Is there any possibility of getting help to complete the...
Yes, Azuma, so these are the kind of things we actually like to support clients, because here's a case he has started and he's putting his own money and he needs. So what he would require is, as I did mention, will be the bills of quantities to know exactly how much he will need to complete. Now, once he has his bills of quantities, he can then come for us to engage him, and based on how much money we would give out, he will be able to complete this unit. So that is something we do, and we do for most clients.
Okay. All right. Just before we take a look at our tidbits for today, Walanyo, I believe, is on the line. Hello, Walanyo. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes. Please go ahead with your question, please.
Please, I want to ask. I have a land which is about 100 by 100 square feet. Let's say 2 building plot.
Okay.
And I don't have money to put structure on it. And I want to collaborate with somebody. I want to do it like a rented premises. So in this, how can the company help me put up the building so that it can be renting it and be deducting the money?
Okay. I
Can
get
it be,
yes,
can
I
it
get
be
your question.
possible?
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. I think I get the question. Yes, Mr. Yanko.
Yes, so we are a bank, and we do what banks do. But in Walanyo's instance, what he needs is a developer who would go into partnership with him to develop that land. And usually we have developers who do this. What they do is they look at the land, they look at how many units can go on the land. So once they build, they give a portion of the units to the landowner, and then they keep the rest to recover whatever money they put in. So it would be good for him to engage a developer who would the bank usually doesn't go into this kind of arrangements, but there are developers who can assist in such situations.
Oh, okay. That's with your outfit, but to the best of your knowledge, do you think that other banks are interested in such
partnerships? Banks are not supposed to, and
okay.
I believe all banks who find themselves in that, they don't do that.
Okay.
So he'll rather engage a developer who has the capacity to be able to do this. If the developer needs money to build, then we will fund the developer. But the bank will not fund, build the house and then rent it over. Okay. That is not our business.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Mike, okay, yes. I'm Amir watching you from IPS campus. I'm a law student and doing my small business. Please, can you, Mr. Nyako from the bank, help me, or how much do I have to have on me before I come? I don't know whether you are referring to you wanting to put up a structure or you need money for your small business or to finish your course. I'm not too clear on the question, but I'll come back to you in just a second. We just want to take a look at the tidbits for today. So our tidbits for today for prospective homeowners, and you would want to find out that, do you require financial support to build a residential property on your plot of land? Well, speak to First National Bank to help you build to your specifications or complete the housing project you already started. Now, the home construction loan gives you funds to build your property and repay within a maximum period of 20 years. Interest rate can be fixed or variable. And to qualify for a home construction loan, the property must be for residential use. The borrower must provide proof of ownership of the land, evidenced by land title certificate, fully registered indenture, or any other document acceptable to First National Bank. You can call 0242 435 050 or 0800 770 522 to get started. So those are our tidbits for today. Well, Mr. Nyako, the previous question, I didn't really get it. Mami Fua is saying that she's a law student doing small business, so she wants to find out whether the bank can help her. So I don't know whether she's referring to, yes, her
yes,
business.
so we have Mami Fua, we have a product called equity release, that's the home equity, where if you have a property and you want money to be able to fund your business, you release equity in that existing property. So if Mamifa has a property already, and we can release equity in the existing property, and usually we do up to about 60% of the value of that property to be able to fund her business. I want to believe that is what...
I hope so. Yeah. Mami, I hope that I've gotten your question, but if I got it wrong, you can send in your question again, rephrase the question, and we'll try, even though we've run out of time basically, we'll try and get Mr. Nyako to answer, and I'll personally make sure that you get an answer to your question. All right, we're just about to wrap up, and I'll just read through the last message quickly, and then we just wrap up. My name is Augustine from Takrady. I'm really enjoying the show, and my question is, I asked the guy to give me a 2-bedroom plan, and before I can think of how the plan should be like, he brought the plan without my input, and I asked why, and he did not consult me before designing, and he said that that is the standard design, and it's registered. He's registered the building already, so the design already, so he can't alter it. Is that true? I'm really wondering.
Well, I don't have the details, but I don't expect any professional to do that, because like I did, the right process is that if a client is engaging you to design, first is to engage the client, to provide the client brief, because you need to design to suit the client. And usually the first step is that you do a sketch design, which you discuss with the client, and if the client is happy, before you go into production. So I do not see how that person will go ahead to produce and not have engaged the very person who is engaging your services to produce something. So I don't think it's
quite weird there.
Yes.
Well, on that note, we would have to wrap up our conversation for this afternoon. They say that time flies in good company. It's been wonderful really with you, Mr. Nyako, and thank you so much for passing through and for answering the questions that our guests, our viewers have out there for you. And we hope that we'll be able to get you again on this show another time.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. So we've been speaking to Mr. Edward Nyako, Head of Business Development and Strategic Initiatives of Home Loans, First National Bank, Ghana. And we've been talking about ensuring value for money in home construction. Now, the Homeowners Show has been brought to you by kind courtesy of First National Bank. First National Bank, how can we help you? And supported by CBC Properties Limited, the home of your affordable and litigation-free lands and properties. It's been great coming your way. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Make sure that you join us again same time next week for another episode. Until then, it's bye for now. Have a great week.